The high-speed nature of this place is going to be the next great bastion that everyone has to undertake. On the convergence of the Gap Road and Back Beach Road, this is Phillip Island, and this is one of the most incredible challenges that they will face over the course of this season. It's round 3 of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, and this is a circuit which on paper looks scary, and on track is even scarier. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone watching around the world. My name is Jake Sperry, and alongside me in the booth for this one, as per usual, is Caitlin Penny. Jay Kennedy on the cameras here as we take a look around what is an incredible cathedral of speed that we're about to take challenge with right on the coast here of Victoria. Caitlin, you cannot ask for anything better. This is a speed demon's paradise.
Oh, absolutely, Jake. Thank you very much. And it's quite a scenic one as well. If you look at Phillip Island, you can see that the ocean is right next to where the racetrack is. And I've been looking up pictures, very nice pictures of Phillip Island with penguins and kangaroos and things like that. But you can genuinely see the ocean as you're racing. There you see where it is. Little spit off of land in the south coast of Australia, and you can see the sheer cliff right next to the circuit. Hopefully no one goes too wide coming out of the southern loop there today, Jake.
Well, hopefully no one will. This is a circuit, 4.445 kilometers, that is absolutely massively fast, anti-clockwise in terms of direction, but those 12 corners, you look around and there are some iconic ones. You've always got a chance to attack into Doohan Corner. You've always got a chance into Miller Corner, Jungle Jack Miller, turn 4, but keep an eye out for drivers getting loose over the top of Lukey Heights, turn 9, down the hill at MG, another place where moves can happen. And today is about being on the coast. It's normally a very windy circuit out there, and I'm just taking a look at the conditions out there in terms of weather. It is gusting at around 40 kilometers an hour at the moment. This is some extreme weather conditions that they're dealing with today.
Wow, and these are very sensitive cars too. You can see them out there, right, very exposed. And with those big rear wings and lots of aero, they'll be getting loads of grip around some of the track. But then you get a side gust and all of a sudden the car wants to step out. So we do have a tricky one for our drivers today. And it's a difficult circuit in the first place, designed primarily for motorbike racing and most famous for motorbike racing. But definitely still has enough room for cars. There you see the ocean directly over the start-finish line there. Beautiful scenes. But yeah, very tricky circuit.
It is a very tricky circuit. 69 laps available to them today. They must use 2 tyre compounds, soft, medium and hard available. No rain tyres as of yet. Of course, with the release of the new iRacing weather system, this is one of the pieces of machinery that eyes are going to be looking around at in the foreseeable future. There's your projected tyre life. The hard and the mediums sharing somewhat of a similar range, 25 to 40 laps for the medium, 35 to 50 for the hards over these 69 laps. Softs go 20 to 28. It's really difficult here around Phillip Island, Caitlin, to really understand what strategy is going to be, because everyone thinks they've got it all sussed, but nobody really knows what the right way forward is.
Absolutely. We have a very nice 69 laps here today. So if you do a little bit of maths, that doesn't quite cover, well, it does just about cover 2 stints on the hards, but it doesn't cover a one-stop strategy, considering you do have to use more than 1 compound of tyre. So providing those projected tyre lives are right, and we take the minimum projected tyre life that we can see, they're going to have to do at least 2 pit stops. Now, the projected tyre life didn't quite carry over last time out in VIR. There were some drivers, such as the eventual winner, Jordan Gronkowski, who were able to run much longer than those minimums, and were able to benefit from that. So who knows, we could be seeing the same thing again today.
Well, what we saw last year was an absolute domination from a driver who is of the highest echelons of sim racing, Ben Fuller, putting nearly a minute on everybody in the field. Marcel Fassbender and Jordan Gronkowski second and third, but the majority of the field find themselves 1 lap down, including the likes there of those who go through. That's how the iRacing Championship stands after 2 rounds. Jordan Gronkowski on top with 530. Darren Parker giving chase on 502. Eduardo Radice not a million miles behind, just the 4 points adrift there in 3rd overall as those top 10 start to stack themselves up. But the SimSpeed Championship becomes an interesting picture. It's 10 to the good for Jordan Gronkowski at the moment, with the likes of Darren Parker and Jorge Martinez sitting in the wings. 3 drivers tied there, Caitlin, for 4th position, in Radice, in Reed, and in Volta-Lux. But we are just about with 10 seconds remaining here in qualifying, about to head over to our starting grid for today's action at Phillip Island and the racing that we have available. Jacob Reed will put the car on pole position, a 106.401, nearly over 3.5 tenths clear of Eduardo Radice, who will find himself alongside on the front row. Second row, we'll see Jordan Gronkowski there in 3rd, and the New Zealander Timothy Vaughan going from 4th position. Jorge Martinez will be looking to try and bounce back. He goes from 5th alongside Connor Pooler, good qualifying from him in 6th position. And Darren Parker, he starts 7th with work to do today. Volta-Lux is alongside him for company in 8th. Jason Green will find Paul O'Regan with Ent Nielsen in 11th position. He will have Anthony Catt there alongside. He goes from 12th. Row number 7, Adam Gleason on the inside, and he'll have a teammate for company in John Pat Kelly. He'll be on the outside as they rush on forward. And nice to see Brad Newman out here racing from Club Oz NZ, making his cameo appearance with George van Rensburg in 16th position, South African. The last driver on the grid is Ray Lombardi, making 17, not for a lack of participation, but we hit one of the splits here today in terms of driver turnout. 49 drivers across 3 splits wanting to race, which means normally when you've got a grid of 24 maximum housed in the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour, it means one thing and one thing only. You go up over 48, means you're going to have to make an extra split, and that's what's happened here today. Drivers now lining themselves up on the Gardner Straight, not necessarily flat, so those drivers starting a little bit further back, very similar to Interlagos, are going to have a little bit of a launch down the hill, like some Ray Lombardi right at the very back will have that opportunity to take that launch and go forward. Those up nearer the front will have a higher gradient to deal with, and so it's going to be tougher on the start. Lots of drivers choosing the medium compound tyre then to start off their racing. Couple drivers then are on the soft tyres, Connor Pooler and Jordan Gronkowski, the big 2, who are going to be making some progress. But as everybody lines up, there's the green flag, and we are...
Indeed, I think Jake might be cutting out there, but we see Jacob Reed leading the race into the second turn through the southern loop. And
on the run to... Perfect then off of that launch. So that is exactly what was going forward. So you couldn't really ask for too much dramas then on the opening section, but if you're going to go around like that, there's the troubles early.
Yep, first few cars off the road. Jorge Martinez is badly affected. He drops right down to the rear of the field. I wasn't quite able to see who got involved there. There's Connor Pooler up alongside Eduardo Radice to the outside line. He finds no traction out there, and Eduardo Radice with the shorter line gets through into 3rd position, or maintains 3rd position. It's worth noting, Jake, that Jacob Reed had an absolutely massive pole position. This circuit is only 1 minute and 6 seconds if you do it perfectly, and he had a pole position of nearly 4 tenths.
4 tenths of a second says all you need to know in terms of how quick he was. Cars already diving into the pits then here on lap 1 of this race, and that's Brad Newman who's got damage then, so he'll come off of the soft tyres and go forward on in his race. Martinez now down to the back of the field, P16. Look at that, George van Rensburg getting through and jumping up past Kent Nielsen. He's up 8 spaces in the opening lap.
Wow, so George van Rensburgen, the South African, is flying in the early stages. He's on those soft tyres, so he absolutely needs to, and that will be exactly what his strategy was, to just make up those places as quickly as possible. Anthony Catt and Jason Green also making up plenty of places, and George van Rensburg's up another one past Anthony Catt now.
Yeah, but Catt starting on the hard Tarka, so those two drivers are going to be some who are going to be in a fantastic position later on in this race. They're playing the long game. Catt rushing through Lukey Heights. Nielsen behind. Look at the lunge down the inside there by Walter Lux, who absolutely mobs Kent Nielsen. Nothing he can do about that. Lux, perfect on his move forward. He managed to jump through, but watch out for the race lead, because here comes Gronk to the inside, soft versus medium, and thank you very much.
Through he goes, and another very important move, and we've also got a change a little further back. I think, was that Connor Pooler up into 4th position? There we go. So Pooler, and it's Vaughan, so Vaughan gets straight back through again, so a little bit of squabbling there over 4th and 5th position, and again, there's a tyre advantage between the two of them. And we're up the inside now on board with Connor Pooler, and he gets 4th place.
Yep, he jumps through now, so Timothy Vaughan has to stare behind, but Pooler as well is on the soft tyre. Now, the DRS system is open, that rear wing flap, so there'll be advantages on that main straight, gaining that rush and gaining that run, where everyone is looking at jumping up and gaining those few positions with that aid on the back of their rear wings. Gronkowski will be trying to break away from Jacob Reed best he possibly can. Already got the tune of 0.8 of a second ringing in the ears. He loves to build that gap early, does the Scotsman Jordan Gronkowski. But Jacob Reed, with the DRS flap open, is going to try and reel that in. 2.96 on the straight from Gronkowski, just 3.10 from Jacob Reed as he looked to give chase.
Very fast laps already in the early stages, side by side a little further back. Walter Lux there making up a place, up into 8th position there ahead of Anthony Catt. And still they jostle for position as we head through turn 2, the beautiful scenic southern loop, and out towards the and there's been a change up at the front of the order too. And look at I think we've had a mistake from Gronkowski, have we?
That's Pooler.
Sorry. Oh, contact.
Oh, it's Radice. That's Eduardo Radice. So Pooler made the move on Radice, tried to jump through, and then tried to get that move. Contact on the turn into Siberia. And Eduardo Radice, the Italian here, is going to start dropping down the order. And that's not what he wants. He tries to find a semblance of grip at this moment. Brad Newman with the fastest lap of the race. Radice just about gathers it up in front of Darren Parker. Down the hill at MG, he starts searching. Here's a look at it, and this is where it all starts to go horribly wrong. Rushing through then at the Miller corner, and now trying to get that look at Siberia. You can see Pooler just pinches in enough, and that was a case of 0.9 car lengths, and there's a spin up top.
Yeah, someone else has gone around. Is that... it's Radice. No, Kent Nielsen. Kent Nielsen goes around. Radice is in the pits, which is why I saw him dropping down the order. And no real surprise there after the contact he had and the damage that he may have sustained. And now we look up to... Is that Jason Green up in 5th position? And he'll be just about... Well, he's got George van Rensburg all over his tail. The hard charging George van Rensburg on those soft tyres, who is lapping faster than pretty much anyone else on a similar starting strategy.
Making hay while the sun shines. Track temperature 29 degrees at the moment, and George is flying and is trying to get up his 11th place at the moment. Green on medium tyres. Is there a look at MG? No, but there is that ultimate run if you can rush through these final 2 corners. Now, this is where the crosswinds start to really batter, and we've never seen winds this strong in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour around this place, because that iRacing weather system is getting more and more realistic as it goes. Here goes the look then to the inside. George van Rensburg, easy done.
Up into 5th position. Where did he start? Something like 16th? This is great stuff from George van Rensburg. And like I said so many times, he needed to do that. His next target will be Timothy Vaughan up in front of him, who's a few seconds up the road. To be honest, I don't think that he will be too worried about Timothy, considering the pace that we've seen from that number 9 car so far. But if he approaches him, you bet your bottom dollar that he'll be going
all cats
through.
Off.
And yes, and oh dear, okay.
So Anthony Catt will drop 2 places then and will fall behind Parker and Gleeson. That will put him now in the clutches of Martinez, who, of course, on lap 1 locked his rear tyres and sent himself round into a spin. So this is where Anthony Catt found those troubles on his own, and the wind is going to be very deceptive today. It's going to be tough to pick a braking marker.
Wide, and loses 2 places in the process. That would have been Jorge Martinez and John Pat Kelly, potentially, unless it's already updated. And we're going to go side by side here with Walter Lux getting a better run out of the final turn and going past Jason Green as well. So moves up and down the order. Lux is through into 6th place with the DRS wide open.
It's been a manic start. We're only on lap 7 here of 69, and it's been an eclectic mix of overtakes from drivers with different strategies and different cards to play over the course of today's race. So Lux now up into 6th. We'll have George van Rensburg in his sights, trying to move up into the top 5. Just looking at those last couple of laps, though, it was 4 tenths in the favour of George van Rensburg. Look at this, getting a little bit dicey behind. Darren Parker corking the bottle for Gleeson, for Catt, for Martinez, for Paul O'Regan, for John Pat Kelly. 6-pack challenge through the hay shed.
Darren Parker has disappeared, but there he goes, comes back again. Darren Parker with the iconic, slightly greener than usual Petronas livery, always one to look out for because he's so easy to spot. We're on board now with Jorge Martinez, who did so well at the first round of the championship at the Nürburgring, won that race from 7th place on the grid, and he's been affected again in the early stages of this one, but making up the places, goes through on Anthony Catt up the inside, and he's up into the top 10, Jake.
He is, and Walter Lux is up into the top 5 too, so moves going around everywhere you look, and there is Connor Pooler, who has caught the back of Jacob Reed here in this opening stint on lap 8, and all of a sudden Jacob Reed is having to play defensive, and that gap has spiraled out now, 3.5 seconds to Jordan Gronkowski, who leads this race outright, and it looks like Jason Green has gone and dropped a couple places now too. He's also gone off at Jungle Jack Miller's corner.
Yep, few offs going, well, it's always that corner, isn't it? I think there's probably a side wind going into there, or at least a tailwind pushing the cars wide. So you're right that the braking zones are going to be changing depending on the wind. We're going to see a replay now, and wide he goes. So that's why he was able to lose those places. He had plenty of time before that, and regains the circuit. And now we look, this is Jacob Reed now under pressure from Connor Pooler, and this is over 2nd place.
It is a little search to the inside at the southern loops. Never going to get it 100% sorted, but the rush up then towards turn 4 and Miller corner through Casey Stoner's turn 3, and a little pivot there to the inside from Connor Pooler. He's going to the Sim Racers Handbook, trying to find an overtake. Rule 1, get large in the mirrors.
And Jacob Reed needs to make sure not to lose too much time, not to be distracted by Connor Pooler getting large in the mirrors, because yes, he wants to maintain this place and he wants to have that advantage over Connor Pooler, but Pooler is not really who Jacob's racing here. And when it comes to the wide and off the road, Jacob Reed's made a mistake.
That's a big off at Lukey Heights. He's kept it out of the barriers, but it's so easily done as he tipped it in. He just understeered as the caught a gust of wind, it looked like, going up over the top of the hill. And just like that, Jacob Reed drops back from 3rd, and now he's looking at Timothy Vaughan trying to jump up onto the podium. So massive changes in terms of this race, and no look from Vaughan here through turn 1, and troubles for George van Rensburg.
Oh, that's a shame. He had such a good start to this race. I noticed him dropping down the order, but he has gone well down the order. Remember, he was 5th at one point. He's 13th. And we're now going to see what happened to Reed. And he is just going to run wide on the exit. Look at that.
Yeah, it's just pure understeer. I think he had to straighten out the steering. Now, this is what happened to George van Rensburg going through turn 11 and the back. Oh, you can see he just had to try and straighten up the car because it was starting to go, and then he had to crank the steering. That cost him a lot of trouble, and then he had to avoid the marshal's post there to try and get back on circuit. He's just had another issue over at Miller Corner, so he's now found himself going through and losing that group entirely. So George Van Rensburg, when it rains, it pours, and at the moment, he is dousing himself in trouble at the moment.
Yep, only the 16th ranked driver in the 17-car race, but he was looking a lot better than that in the early stages. Here is Jordan Gronkowski still leading this race by 6 seconds now over Connor Pooler, who gets up into second without really having to try with that one. Jacob Reed, though, what I was trying to say before, directly before he made a mistake, is that he can't afford to make any mistakes here. His real race is with Jordan Gronkowski, and it's going to be a strategic race considering he's the top driver on medium tyres.
Well, he's given him 6 extra seconds to go play ball with. So Jacob Reed, if he finds himself at the end of the checkered flag with 6 seconds or less on the clock, he'll know exactly where he lost this race in terms of pace today. So that's going to be in the back of his mind, how he's going to be able to chase that down. Still a long way to go here in this one with a race like this, which is going to be very heavily dealing with the strategy card out there. So keep that in mind as they all start to dance about here through this section. Paul O'Regan, Anthony Catt, 9th and 10th positions also continuing on their races at the moment as they now look to try and rush through MG and get that rush off then in towards the final couple of corners. Cat going with that stability. He's run this stability a lot over the course of the back half of last season. He was able to pick up the big results then of consistency of 4th and 5th place finishes last year. But that consistency, everyone's just raised their game, Caitlin, this year.
Yep, and up the inside we go. So Paul O'Regan on Anthony Catt, I think, goes through. And up into, that was O'Regan on Cat, sorry, I was just checking. O'Regan, not too long ago, was in 11th place, past Jason Green, and has since made that other maneuver. And is Martinez being affected? I just noticed him jumping up and down the order, but no, he's still in 8th position. I think there's a little bit of confusion on the timing screen there, because I've seen him change places with Darren Parker about 5 times in the last couple of seconds. And I don't think that they've been side by side consistently through every corner. So not entirely sure what's going on there, but still some overtaking and squabbling for position. You see them change places again there on the timing screen, but Parker still maintains that 7th place.
Yeah, so that is all about the connection for Darren Parker, which is very tentative at best. Ray Lombardi is out of the race, and he has had a massive, massive smash up on the exit of Siberia, and you don't often get them much bigger than this. You've got to get a replay on it if you can, because that is one of the biggest solo incidents I have seen in a very long time, and I tell you what, it's going to be one that, although he's at the back of the field, he would have been very upset to have this sort of moment as they now start charging through the opening corner. Here's a look on the replay, rushing about then through Siberia, off of the exit, trying to put the power down, catches the curb, and watch this, bang, into the bank, full 360, lands it on feet.
And that is why we don't have grass banks on the edge of Grand Prix circuits anymore, but I suppose in sim racing you can get away with it since no one is actually going to be injured. But yes, unfortunately Ray Lombardi is out of this race, and judging by what we've just seen, no surprise there.
Yep, so that is a big shame for Ray, and he will find himself then out in the early stages. Eduardo Radice, by the way, now sets the fastest lap of the race here, all the way back in position 16. A 109.508 is his best. He set that on lap 6 after making his early call for the pit. So he's looking at trying to get back into this. I would suggest the fact that he's on a soft tyre at the moment. He's going to be going aggressive from now until the end of this race, trying to earn back that time on track.
Yep, and who's to say he can't do it? Remember, Jordan Gronkowski at the very first race of the season in the Nürburgring was affected, had an incident with someone else, dropped way down the order, and then pushed on the softer tyres, and was able to get back up to 4th position. And in Radice's case, he was affected quite badly earlier on with a collision. He ran wide, went through the gravel. He's had to make a pit stop and put on those softer tyres. And now he's doing the Gronkowski strat, which is just push.
Absolutely. Jacob Reed in third position, still having to guard behind Timothy Vaughan, who will know this circuit like the back of his hand, the New Zealander. This is an incredibly fast racetrack, and Jacob Reed struggling again through turn 11, where you are so dependent on getting as much aerodynamic grip through the car when it only wants to play with mechanical. That's the issue that you have through that section. The wind doesn't help. Timothy Vaughan, 317 on the straight, in towards turn number 1. They're doing corner, then through the southern loop where you've got to wait an age of turning for the power. Darren Parker through on Adam Gleeson. He moves up to 6th.
Up into 6th place goes Darren Parker, still having slight connection issues, but seems to be making the most of it with those hard tyres. Ooh, there you see how janky it can be. Hopefully the other drivers aren't being thrown off too much by what's going on there. Darren Parker is the top driver on hard tyres, so if he can use that to his advantage, then a big advantage he will have. And Timothy Vaughan here, also another driver, well, we were looking at Timothy Vaughan a second ago, another driver who is in a good position strategically, second driver on medium tyres, only just behind the pole sitter Jacob Reed, and with the pace that Reed has shown, following him through is no mean feat whatsoever, and could end up gaining Timothy a couple of places.
Well, you've got to keep an eye on Volta Lux as well, in 5th place overall. He's only 2 seconds adrift of Timothy Vaughan at this moment. Another 1:11.2 for him, 11.3 and 11.5 for Vaughan. So Lux is hitting the consistent numbers that he needs to be a threat in this race, and the Austrian would love to put himself on the top step of the podium, should that be possible out there here today. We have had changes up and down the order, and into the pits goes George van Rensburg. So just the 15 laps he goes on his soft tyres. He's the first real taker we're seeing in the pits.
George van Rensburg stops, and to be honest, with the trials and tribulations that we've seen from him, it's no surprise that those softs didn't last particularly long. I've noticed someone, Ronaldo Augustus, in the YouTube chat, as we're looking here at John Pat Kelly, I think, making up a move there. Very good. Ronaldo Augustus says soft, hard, soft could be a good strategy. And yeah, potentially the mathematics works out. And we'll have to wait and see what these top drivers on soft tyres go on to, whether they are going to make a long run on hard tyres or whether they want to avoid those, considering the grip you need around here.
Yellow walled mediums on George van Rensburg as he now looks to set off on his second stint then of the race. So he is someone who is going to be a trend setter then when it comes to this, and eyes will be on 2 different drivers right now, and they are the top 2, John Gronkowski and Connor Pooler, in terms of when they decide to come in and make their stop. Reed still being hounded by Timothy Vaughan here, 3rd and 4th and 5th, with Walter Lux just stalking behind. There is the Austrian, not wanting to put too much dividends into play at this moment. And still you've got Jorge Martinez, who is, you would feel, being affected by these 2, Gleeson and Parker, being effective in front. And one of the keys here that is going to be costing him, Caitlin, is the moment that they disappear, the way that iRacing works, he loses slipstream for the tiny moment that they're gone.
Such a shame there. So hopefully it's not quite as bad on his end as it is on ours, but you have to assume that it is. And if you do have cars lagging about in front of you like that, oh, and he's about to do exactly what I was going to suggest. Sometimes it's best to get in relatively early and get out of the way just so you're not affected so much.
He was on a tightrope trying to get it slowed for the early commitment cone, locked up both fronts, and we've seen it so many times, Caitlin. You lock up both fronts, you can easily find yourself in the pit wall itself if you're not too careful with that pit entry.
Yeah, I mean, think about David Coulthard at the Australian Grand Prix 1995. Obviously, that was a very different Australian Grand Prix circuit, but with a pit lane that narrow, you've got to be careful. But anyway, there's Martinez on the soft tyres now, so he will be going for a quicker stint. And he ran those mediums. He didn't run the mediums particularly long, especially compared to the predicted tyre life. Some of that may be because he was scared of what the drivers in front of him were doing, but at the same time, you have to imagine that he would have wanted to run longer. So we'll have to wait and see how that affects the strategy, whether he'll try to make up for it by running longer on this soft stint, or whether he'll have to end the race on hard tyres maybe. Who knows?
Might be a full rainbow strategy going medium, soft, hard here today. Lux, that gap now 2.2 seconds. Vaughan and Reed have started to increase the pace, and he was on that over the last 3 laps consistently 1/10 of a second slower over those last 3, but still 3 very consistent 11.3s by Lux over that last section going forward. This is still a tough race to go and put together, but speaking of putting it together, there's a look at the opening corner, because Kent Nielsen and Brad Newman now starting to race. Remember, Newman's already come in on the opening lap, made that switch onto the soft tyres. You look behind at someone like, look in front, at someone like Kent Nielsen. Nielsen's still out there on his original set of mediums. So this is a case of making a pit stop up for Brad Newman compared to Kent Nielsen.
Indeed, a pit stop up would give him that strategic advantage. But of course, you've got to make it work with the tyres. You can't run tyres longer than they want to be run, because then you'll start to lose all of that grip. And at a circuit like this, with not too many straights, where it's all kind of faster corners, the grip is so important. That's why we had such carnage at certain points in the race last year, and why the drivers are really prioritizing the softer compound of tyres. We're now. Sorry, go on, Jake.
Yeah, but look at where Brad Newman is compared to those around him. Eduardo Radice, 4 seconds to the good. Jorge Martinez, 7 seconds to the good. That would put Brad Newman at the moment, in terms of making a stop, about net even, you would say, with Reed, with Vaughan, and with Lux. Fastest lap for Martinez, 8.9.
Potentially, yeah, but for Newman, he is very, very far back, so it won't necessarily matter in that particular battle, unless, of course, he can put in some ungodly quick lap times. And yes, fastest lap just came in for Jorge Martinez. We expected that he would be pushing, having just gone onto those soft tyres, and yeah, keep your eyes on that one.
It was a jump start we're hearing, so that's what's cost him. But in comes Jacob Reed then to make that stop. So Brad Newman had a jump start, had to serve the penalty, get back out and away again. But that will put him in the range of these sorts of drivers. So where Jacob Reed decides to jump, make that stop, this is going to be a very telling strategy. Down to the final box here at this moment, there is the likes of Brad Newman and Kent Nielsen, who he's looking to try and get out of ahead. Now, there's 2 ways you can exit, but he's going to exit behind Brad Newman, and that for Jacob Reed might just be a sting in the tail for what he wants in this race. Fastest lap for Martinez, another 8.9. They won't get the SimSpeed Championship points at the moment, will Jorge Martinez, but you would feel if you can get into the top 10, there's an extra SimSpeed bonus point on the line.
Indeed. Like I said, keep your eyes on that one. You do have to be in the top 10 in order for the fastest lap to deliver you a point. And Gronkowski's in the pits. So Jordan Gronkowski pits from the lead, Jake.
Yep, no surprises there. He's done very well. A full 21 laps on his set, and Connor Pooler will follow, and Timothy Vaughan will follow off of the medium, and Volta Lux will follow in, leaving Darren Parker to try and take the lead of the race if he's already got that going for him. Jordan Gronkowski leaves his box. Parker will now take a lap lead here at Phillip Island.
Goodness me, Parker will be like, whoa, where's everyone gone? Have I disconnected? And luckily the answer is not yet. But yes, we had the top 4 cars all in the pit lane. Connor Pooler there exiting on medium tyres. Where is Jordan Gronkowski? He's on mediums as well. And as for Jacob Reed, we saw him. He's on soft tyres. He did that a lap ago. Vaughan goes on to soft. Lux goes on to soft. So it's all changed there in terms of strategies. And no real surprise there, because you have to use 2 compounds.
So Radice has got himself to the back of Volta Lux. Vaughan has lost the place to Jorge Martinez, which is a huge boom for Marquez on his undercut strategy, that he's jumped the likes of Timothy Vaughan and Volta Lux here. So everybody's strategy calls are starting to gain slightly different advantages here, and this is a big moment in the race. You look at who's got onto what. Gronkowski's onto the medium tyre, Poula's also onto the medium tyre, but Jacob Reed on soft tyres at the moment will feel like he's got his medium stint out of the way, and he might want to go aggressive. 2-stop on the softs, maybe even 3-stop on the softs, Caitlin, might be an option.
Potentially, yeah. Of course, you would still have to run at least medium tyres in another stint. Big twitch there. Big twitch. But yeah, you're right. He's already done that, so he would be absolutely fine. Parker should stay out for a few more laps, considering he is on those hard tyres. He might be trying to do 1 stop fewer than these other drivers. And Jacob Reed now takes the fastest lap, and with it, the provisional sim speed point that would come if he was able to finish in the top 10.
A 108.6 from Jacob Reed, an absolute dynamite lap as he used the DRS to pass Connor Poula for next second here in this race. This is going to be the stint where Jordan Gronkowski and Connor Poula are going to struggle more than Jacob Reed is at the moment, because he's going to use those tyres absolutely perfectly. There is Jordan Gronkowski. That's a mistake for 2 drivers there. He got caught watching the tracks of Adam Gleeson. Gronkowski off the road and keeps it going.
Yeah, that was a big problem there for Gleeson and Gronkowski. Now, Gronkowski had a big lead over Paula and Reed before he came into the pits. But of course, the problem with pitting earlier than your rivals is that you come out behind them and they don't get blue flags. You have to pass them on the road, as John Pat Kelly pits as well. But yeah, you have to pass them on the road. And if they make a mistake like that and you're busy watching their wheels, or you run out of road, then you end up being caught out just as much as they are.
Well, here's going to be the place he's going to try and look. It'll be to the outside of Stoner Corner, inside then, here at Jungle Jack Miller's. And can he get that sorted with power off of the exit? Just about chops his nose off of the exit. Jordan Gronkowski is ruthless as he rides through Siberia.
Ruthless, yeah, but I think he'll be wiping sweat from his brow after that one, getting through in one piece. He now sets off after Darren Parker. About 3 seconds is the gap for the lead now. Not that that is going to affect the net lead. Jacob Reed is the much more important driver at this point, with no disrespect to Darren Parker, because Reed, of course, is still pushing, has those softer tyres, and not only will have to pass these other drivers on the track, but will have to pass Jordan Gronkowski as well if he is able to catch up to him. But yeah, that's the other strategic thing you've got to imagine. The theoretical best strategy, as Reed there goes up past Anthony Catt ahead of us, up into 5th position. The theoretical best strategy on paper is not necessarily the best strategy on the road, because you have these variables all around you in the other cars.
You absolutely do, and Anthony Catt then loses the place out to Jacob Reed. New softs versus old hards, no surprises how that all plays about. Lux as well has found himself through on Kent Nielsen now, so that puts him up into 10th place with that pass, and the final championship point for the SimSpeed Championship here in the early stages of the season. We can say early stages, really, Caitlin, for about the first 8 rounds here, as Darren Parker leads this race. And this is going to mean that if you get a good start, it's not the end of the world if you don't, but points theory states that every time you go through a race, each point is worth slightly more. And at the moment, points right now come at a premium.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the longest seasons of Grand Prix racing that I personally have ever seen, and probably one of the longest that has ever been run. You can see on the bottom of the screen there, we're looking at round 22, which will be at Portimao, but there's another 2 rounds after that one as well, so plenty of opportunities for drivers to score points. And it really means that if you keep showing up to these things and you keep finishing in the top 10, then realistically you're going to be setting yourself up well, as Radice now comes in for his 2nd stop, so things not going particularly well for Radice, or indeed Adam Gleeson there.
Yep, so Adam Gleeson makes his first stop out and away on the soft tyre, Radice is also going to get a fresh set of softs on for himself. So Radice right now is going to be trying to basically run qualifying laps between now and the end, on board with Gronk. Jordan Gronkowski looking to chase down the race leader here. Darren Parker, who's 26 laps into his stint right now, on the hard compound tyres. Here is where Gronkowski looks to try and gain more advantage here on his direct rival in the championship. He's 10 points clear at the moment. He'll have to give a lot of room with him blinking about there on the left-hand side, but he'll get the move done regardless. And from what would have been a move to 3 points in the championship, now just becomes 17 and a 14-point swing as Marquez on the outside now sweeps around Anthony Cat.
Nicely done there from Jorge Marquez, gets through, and you see Timothy Vaughan there trying to take advantage as well, gets very close to the back end of that car. You don't want to do that, because if there's the slightest bit of netcode, or if there's the slightest issue for Anthony Cat up there.
Oh, there it is!
Oh, and there it is.
Anthony Cat dispatched into the gravel trap there after contact with Timothy Vaughan. And now Cat's going to have a long, long road to recovery. If he's got it available, he's got the black and orange mechanical flag. I think that's his day done.
He's completely stopped, so I think he's going to get a tow back to the pits, and we're going to see a replay of exactly what happened. And I tell you what, I was just talking about something like this happening. Oh dear, that looks like netcode to me.
Yeah, no arguments about it. When you got a driver from the United Kingdom, you got a driver from New Zealand, you couldn't be any more worlds apart if you tried. And just like that, there's the contact that puts Anthony Cat out of the race. Gronkowski, your leader now, 2 seconds to the good, and 8 seconds clear right now of Jacob Reed, who finds himself with the fastest lap in 3rd position overall. At this moment, the reigning champion. You've got so much out there that you've got to keep track on, because this is going to be the sort of race where everyone turns around, looks left, right, up and down, and realizes, how on earth did I get to X position at X time? At lap 28, everybody is in the thralls of their strategy play.
Talking of strategy, Jay Kennedy has just said that he reckons Darren Parker will go hard soft, so he will do 1 stop in this race, and that is entirely possible, of course. You see him now 2.8 seconds behind Gronkowski already, showing you just how much quicker the softer tyres, the medium tyres there are than the very old hard tyres that Darren Parker is still running. So that could be a strategy. Whether it will end up being a beneficial one or not is yet to be seen. And really, he's got to keep that pace up as much as he can to balance out the time lost by staying out so long.
This has been an important stint by Paul O'Regan here in 4th position. He's on to his 29th lap here on his set of medium tyres. If he can make it 30, you would feel like he could go 2019 on a set, or 2 sets, of soft compound tyres to get himself to the end. This has been a beautiful long stop by his standards. He may even choose the hard compound tyre to go through, but here's Connor Pooler, who's thinking about making that move, waits for the last possible moment here at Miller Corner, and can he find a way to make it happen? He'll have to go around the outside of Siberia to make this happen. He's going to have to rely on some grip here on the exit, and they're going to scrap all the way to the hay shed. Inside will help Connor Pooler. Reagan not giving this one up. Up the top of Lukey. Marquez goes searching. Round goes 1. Round will try and go 2. Vaughan will try and follow as well. Down the hill in towards MG. And this is what makes racing so great in the Grand Prix Tour.
Oh, that was amazing racing from all of those drivers there. My goodness, Paula, Marquez, Vaughan, very opportunistic. Paula was absolutely gritting his teeth as he did that. As for Paul O'Regan, his priority was just not to lose too much time in that one. But as well as that, he was still racing. He still wanted to maintain that position, because why not, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. I completely missed the fact that he was still on medium tyres, as Marquez runs wide there, and he's going to be side by side with Vaughan.
Yeah, and that's fallen through, because he ended up following Connor Pooler, who also ran very wide and has run wide there through the southern loop on a couple of occasions. Lux in the background now makes the move on Paul O'Regan, and that is beautifully done. Now, we do have a car in the pits making a stop at the moment. That's Kent Nielsen, who's going to go back out onto another set of the soft, keep himself in this race. But my word, Overtake Central has just ignited itself.
Yeah, so Kent Nielsen maintains his, or rejoins the road in 15th position out of the 15 cars still running. Very impressive to see that every car is still on the lead lap. So we haven't had any cars, at least every car that's still running is on the lead lap. We haven't had any cars badly affected that have not been able to maintain that advantage. But of course, still at least half of the race still to go. And across the line come this gaggle of 5 cars you can see in the battle of fourth. And
look at
Vaughan's going to
this.
go around the outside with the DRS wide open.
Down to the inside, Timothy Vaughan with a masterclass of overtaking at the Southern Loop. Use the Gardner Straight and Doohan Corner as set up to slide that one down the inside. Absolutely sensational. Vaughan with the local knowledge, getting it all sorted up. Connor Pooler now finds himself stationary and he realises that he's in the wrong part of town with the wrong tyres on. He's on mediums, everyone around him on softs.
And keeping the DRS open while you're side by side with someone else through turn 1. That is brave stuff there from Timothy Vaughan. And the fact that he ended up making that overtake the right way around, let alone at all, is something to be commended. But yeah, great move from Timothy Vaughan, and we've seen a couple of those in the last few minutes. I suppose these drivers have realised that they've got to get a move on now. The laps are ticking down. We're nearly halfway through this thing, and they are going like the clappers.
They absolutely are. This is lap 32. Now they are on of 69 laps. Jordan Gronkowski, your race leader as it stands by nearly 8 seconds over Darren Parker, who is still yet to come in and make his stop. Paul O'Regan finally departs off of his medium compound tyres. He went 32 laps on them, moves to a set of softs. This will be a 2-stop strategy and an aggressive one on the soft tyres. He'll use the best of them over his stint. He'll come out around Brad Newman.
Very impressive long stint from Paul O'Regan, as Eduardo Rodis and Brad Newman do go through. So he will drop out of the top 10, but with his alternative strategy here, these two drivers aren't necessarily who he is racing, but of course we'll have to pass them on the road now to maintain his ideal strategy. And you see the gap for the lead now is, well, it's not quite 10 seconds. That's the gap between first and third. It's 8.5 seconds between Gronkowski and Parker. So it continues to extend, but the gap in the net order will be 10 seconds with Reed in third.
Yeah, and another advantage for Jordan Gronkowski over that last lap. Took another 0.2 of a second out of Jacob Reed, who's used the best of the soft tyres. It seems at the moment Connor Pooler having to defend with everything he's got, and he'll go skirting off the road. Through the gravel he goes, and this is going to be a sketchy rejoin. He's got a lot of time, though, and he'll lose the positions to both Martinez and Lux. That's what happens when you're pushing a little bit too hard, a little bit too much to keep the places that you've already got.
I've been looking for an opportunity to talk about Paula because I really think he had the advantage in the earlier stages and just kind of gradually lost it as the race went along. But you can see on board quite how he lost this. He took a very different line into that corner than a lot of the other drivers have been taking. A lot of the other drivers have been going wide in, tight out, almost kicking up the grass on the outside of that corner. And Paula there took a much tighter line in and then just kind of ran out of road. So definitely just a pure driving error from Connor Paula as he runs through the gravel.
Yep, so Pooler loses those places. There is your race leader, Jordan Gronkowski, on an island on his own at the moment, and he is happy with that. Keep an eye out on Jacob Reed. He has just caught the back of Darren Parker, so that's going to mean that second place is going to be in the offing soon, but Jacob Reed not quite in the right position to deal with that just yet. On the brakes through at Miller Corner, he's going to have to wait once more as they now go through a small kink, which is classified as turn 5, into Siberia, which is 6.
Two very similarly liveried cars here, but you can tell the difference by the almost day-glow green on Darren Parker's car and the more typical turquoisey Petronas blue-green on Jacob Reed's car. They're approaching they're coming up near the end of this particular lap, so he will get the DRS as they go along the start-finish straight, and this will be a very important overtake that he's got to do as quickly as humanly possible for Jacob Reed here behind his fellow Brit Darren Parker. And I think he's going to be a bit too far back this time around, so more time lost.
Well, it depends how close he's going to get, because there's the slipstream, and straight down the inside, chops it off as well to go. Jacob Reed up to second, and if there were going to be doubts, he left it to the last possible moment into Doohan Corner to make the move to get to second. 11 seconds his gap to chase down. It could have been just 5 earlier on in this race were it not for the fact of his mistake earlier on, but he knows that there's still a long way to go in this race, and he's only dropping 6 championship points as it stands for Jordan Gronkowski with the fast lap bonus point next to his name.
My apologies for writing off that move too early. I did that because realistically I would not have gone for that one, but Jacob Reed did, and he made it work, and you know, fair play. But you're right,
just about having a mistake at Siberia, and he'll just drop the place now to Adam Gleeson.
Yeah, so Conor Puller there losing another one. These last few laps have not been kind to him whatsoever. Early on in the race, I thought that he was almost a shoo-in for a podium, as Darren Parker pits now. So he comes in from second, puts Jacob Reed up into that place. And there's the half spin from Puller. It's a good save, actually. Keeps it out of the gravel and everything. But he does lose that place to Adam Gleeson.
Yep, so that's where frustrations are going to lie. Parker is into the pits. Hard tyres are going to come off the car. Soft tyres are going to go on. So Darren Parker now looks to try and gain as much as he can through this phase of the race. He'll come out just behind Conor Puller. Gronkowski, your leader, 11.3 seconds, the margin now at the front. And when Jordan Gronkowski gets into form like this, he is nigh on impossible to stop.
Yeah. We're halfway through this race now, and he has a lead of 11.5 seconds. It's not quite the dominance that we saw a year ago here, but Jordan Gronkowski still in a very comfortable position, and on tyres that really shouldn't be allowing him to build up an advantage like this. He is actually lapping quicker than Jacob Reed. Maybe about the same now that Reed has got clear of Darren Parker, and we're about to see his lap time this time around. But realistically, considering they both have one more stop in this race still to go, I think Gronkowski has the advantage over not just Reed, but everyone in this race.
Half a second over Jacob Reed on that last lap, which really does show that the medium tyre does have some longevity in Gronk's hands at this moment. Not much that can be said or done against it at this point. Couple seconds. Splitting third, fourth and fifth. Lux versus Martinez versus Vaughan. Worth keeping an eye on that between now and the end of this race. And the charge of Paul O'Regan, who just makes the move on John Pat Kelly. That puts him up now into 9th place.
Indeed, so Paul O'Regan there. I said that he would be gaining places considering how long he was able to stay out on those mediums. I tell you what, it was nearly halfway through the race, so who knows what he can do on the softs. And we're about to see a replay of what happened there. Through on the inside, nicely done, and just about keeps it on the road on the exit.
A lot of cloud cover coming over the circuit then as the iRacing weather system takes its toll at this moment under the 4 and 20 banner. They go on forward, and look at that marked drop in air temperature there, Caitlin. 26 degrees as in comes Timothy Vaughan to make his stop. 32 laps to go. Vaughan, this might be mediums here between now and the end, might be hards.
Indeed. So what tyres does he go onto?
Soft
Those are
again.
soft tyres again. So yes, indeed, running very, very long here.
That's a 3-stop, surely. You can't make 32 laps work on the soft. He'll go 16 and 16 as he'll lose the place outright to Paul O'Regan.
Comes out behind Paul O'Regan, so he'll have to ask him now, how do you make tyres last a long time? I'm asking for a friend. But yes, out in 9th position there is Timothy Vaughan. And this race is very interesting strategically, because there's a lot of people here doing things that almost look like they're shooting themselves in the foot. But when you see more than just a handful of people doing that in a sim race, you have to start to assume that they know something that you don't. So I'm going to keep an eye on Timothy Vaughan as well, see exactly what he does here. And of course, Paul O'Regan, who we know is feather-footed on those tyres and could well spring a surprise.
Well, one thing that I am looking at is where do you find the move and how do you find it? On the brakes goes Vaughan and O'Regan, looking to try and manifest every type of opportunity to make some moves that they can. And this is going to be important here to clear Paul O'Regan early for Timothy Vaughan while he's got the freshest tyres available, so he can use this open expanse of Victoria to his advantage. And to victory he will start searching, because around the outside of Doohan corner he gets it done. Vaughan now finds himself back up into 8th place.
Vaughan has been the overtaker of the race so far. I tell you what, he just seems to find grip wherever he goes on the circuit. It's like Max Verstappen in the wet in 2016. You literally cannot fault him. But through he goes anyway, and I mean, I know I've said this a lot, but very important overtake strategically.
Yep, so that will unlock him some fresh air. He's got about 6 seconds to play with before he reaches Darren Parker, who of course is also on a fresh set of soft tyres. Now there's your predicted lap that you can see there. He's on for an 8.384 at the moment as he rushes up over Lukey Heights. Absolutely blitzes that corner by about a good 2.5 tenths of a second and then some.
Indeed, you know he's doing well when you see the predicted lap just creeping lower and lower and lower. It's gone up a bit due to the nature of the corners, but anyway, still a very, very quick lap. One of the fastest that we've seen, oh, it might be the fastest we've seen, as he crosses the line. And you see current lap 106. Yeah, so Jacob Reed has the fastest with a 108.6. And as for Timothy Vaughan, very, very close indeed.
3,000s.
Yeah, just about 3,000s in it.
Yeah, so couldn't quite get it together at the end. Just in front of them, though, Connor Pooler has just lost the place to Darren Parker. So that is a change for positions, and Parker now will gain an extra stop or an extra place out there. But Parker's blinking and also Gleason's blinking, I think, are going to be slightly linked here, Caitlin. Both from Club UK and I, both running into issues. I wonder if they've got the same internet service provider.
Yes, well, whatever it is, I think they need a new one. At least today it seems to be rather dodgy. But yeah, here we see Darren Parker. Blink and you'll miss him because he himself is blinking. Running in 6th position as it stands. Running a good race, it must be said. However, much of that is down to other people being unwilling to pass him is a completely different matter. But he is running quickly in the 108.9s currently in terms of lap times. And having stayed out so long on the hard tyres, he was the top driver on that particular starting strategy. And you've got to look at the top driver on different strategies as potential contenders in this race. Maybe not for the win at this stage, but who knows? He could always bag himself a podium if it goes his way.
He could. Eduardo Radice, who started on the front row, is now just looking for a championship point. This is John Pat Kelly, who has run a very consistent and quiet race here in 10th place. Hasn't done anything untoward, has just been quietly going about, picking up the points, and now it's about drive off of the exit. Who's got what and who will gain what in terms of their rushes through the rights and the lefts, up over the top of Lukey Heights. Now these two will come along, and Radice needs a run here on John Pat Kelly to gain that 10th position.
Eduardo Radice, badly affected earlier on, has not really been able to show the pace that he would have needed since then. But we know how quick and how competitive Eduardo is. He's one of those drivers who is involved in that scrap for third in the championship at the current point in time. You see them fly through turn 1. It's a very daunting corner. We've seen from some drivers you can leave the DRS open through there and just about make it through. But personally, I might not try that myself in a race this long. But they're making it work sometimes. Here's Jorge Martinez running third.
Yep, and he is being reeled in by Walter Lux, who's taken 6 tenths of a second out of him over the last 2 laps, gave 2 tenths of a second back 3 laps ago, but would love to gain a little bit more. 4 laps the difference in terms of their tyres right now, which indicates that when Martinez is hitting that proverbial cliff on the limits of grip, it's going to be a little bit longer before Walter Lux meets him at the middle. But an 11.5 and 11.4, Martinez wrestles back a tenth of a second there on that lap and keeps that gap staved at 2 seconds.
Jorge Martinez, who had a terrible race last time out. And Vaughan, sorry, going past Paula. So Vaughan has got past Conor Paula on the outside towards turn 1 there. Of course, it was Paula who made that move on the outside earlier on, so they swapped back again. But a difference in tyres between the two of them, and a slight bit of grass being kicked up by Timothy Vaughan on the exit there. I saw Ray Lombardi in the chat earlier describing some of the others as building sandcastles in turn 2, which I thought was quite funny. And it almost looked as if Vaughan was going to do the same thing, but maintained his place on the road.
That is worth keeping in mind, that the track is starting to dirty up because they are rushing about along many of these corners and using all the limits. Now, here's Jason Green. He's gone onto the hard tyre, and you'd feel that this will be to the end of the race for him. Ken Nielsen on the soft, straight down the inside at Miller Corner, and he gets that sorted with 26 laps to go. Now, cars now starting to dive in for the pit, and that is a big name. That's Jorge Martinez making the call to try and make something happen with 26 to go. Soft or medium? You'd feel it's medium at this point.
I would say so, but we're about to be proven wrong potentially. He stayed on soft again. Look at that. Unless it's about to update, and Conor Paula is in. Now, we said he would be on a 3-stop strategy, and that has proven very, very accurate. Jay Kennedy has been saying in every chat I have access to that every strategy is available in this race, and still to this point that appears to be the case. I can't even remember what the last tyres that Conor Paula was on before the mediums we just saw him on.
So he started on softs, moved to the mediums and back to softs. Adam Gleeson now has lost the place to Darren Parker. That's fourth now for Darren, as he's got 4 seconds to chase down Volta Lux. And that looks like a lot less than 4 seconds at the moment, now 3. In comes Jacob Reed, and this is the clutch moment for him and his race. If he's got any hope of catching Jordan Gronkowski, this stint is paramount out of the pits.
Yep, and Lux in too. So second stop for both of these drivers. Into the box they go. Reed with the very last pit stall, considering he is the #1 driver in this series. And out he goes, stays on soft tyres. He can just about run those to the end, I think, if he feather foots it around. And Walter Lux will do the same thing, look. So soft tyres for Lux as well.
Well, you've got to remember that the longer that they go in this race, there is no refueling in these Mercedes W13E performances. What you put in is what you get out. So the less fuel that they've got in these machines, the more light they're going to be on their tyres, because there's less weight in the car to deal with. Paul O'Regan has to let through Jacob Reed. A crucial clearance for Jacob as he came out just behind Mr. O'Regan.
And we'll have to wait and see if Reagan's going to stop again or not. Into the pits comes Gronkowski. So this is the race leader who had about 10 seconds as his advantage before this pit stage. And he, of course, has been running those medium tyres. But if other drivers can go to the end on softs, then there's no reason why Gronkowski himself would not be able to. So he goes onto the soft tyres as well, exits the pits, and will still have a massive advantage in this race.
It's the perfect cover of position in terms of his race. He knew that his only real challenge would be Jacob Reed. He couldn't let him dangle out for too long. No point staying on the mediums. Might as well go get another stint of softs. Here's Martinez versus Radice for 7th and 8th. It's Spaniard versus Italian. And Viva España. Through goes Martinez. He'll jump up another, and Radice will have to settle for 8th place.
Martinez, I was saying earlier, won the first race and then went from the highest heights to the lowest of lows with a retirement in the last race. I'm not sure he did fully retire, did he? Managed to creep home with no points. And there you see Walter Lux going through on John Pat Kelly up into 9th position. Those two not on the same strategy. Lux contending for a podium, Pat Kelly contending for the lower points, but still potentially points if he can keep this clean. But yeah, Martinez has experienced both the highs and the lows in the short first couple of races that we've had in this championship. This third one has been kind of a mix of the two. He's been there or thereabouts, but not quite as competitive as he has been at the other rounds. So you have to imagine that for Martinez, it's damage limitation here. as he is still a contender in this championship. There's George van Rensburg, who has not had the best of races after his dodgy middle stint.
Well, Radice is going to come in for his final stop of the race. Timothy Vaughan really is the only question mark left at the moment. Sparks flying across the circuit off of Adam Gleeson, who runs a little bit wide there through the corner and blinks away too. Timothy Vaughan, remember, he's already 10 laps in on his tyres, and he's got another 23 to go. So either this is the longest stint of softs we're going to see in this race all out, or he's got to come in for one more. Radice back out and away, P14.
Indeed, and that's got to hurt for a driver who is joint P4 in the championship, the SimSpeed Championship. But still, the potential for a top 10 finish for Eduardo Radice just needs to make the absolute most of those soft tyres. And considering he's got fresher soft tyres than some of the other drivers who have stopped, he will be able to push slightly more and go to the end on those. But yes, you're absolutely right, Jay. Oh, I've seen... Sorry, I think that might be... Oh, you know, Vaughan has now got past Gleeson. I wasn't sure whether that was a little bit of blinking there or whether that was on the road. But Vaughan is up into third position in this race now. And potentially, do you reckon he's got to stop again? Or is that...
I think he does.
Yes, he's got to stop again, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got Gronkowski here in terms of his gap down to 8 seconds. Darren Parker, 4 seconds behind Gronk as things stand. You've got Jacob Reed back in 5th at 12 seconds and Adam Gleeson, who's got one more. Now, there is Green, and Green's going to realise that Eduardo Radice is on a mission. That will put him up to 12th place. And he knows that it's 7 seconds to chase right now because the final points paying position is held by Brad Newman at this moment.
Indeed, there is Brad Newman, and we look back to Eduardo Radice, who has just come out of the pits, holding off Jason Green, who has not had, not had the most competitive middle part of the race. We're now into the final third of this race. And I tell you what, don't count out Adam Gleeson for a really impressive result here. I think Occam's razor says that he's most likely to pit again, as Martinez goes past O'Regan on the outside. Great move for Martinez there. Yes, Gleeson will probably have to stop again, but the fact he stayed out so long on his mediums at the start of the race shows you that he's potentially trying to do something quite up in the air here. And considering that he's leaving it out pretty late for his last stop, there's always the possibility that maybe he isn't even planning to stop again. Keep your eyes on Adam Gleeson.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a late stop for him if it is. Brad Newman will now go on to his set of softs, and behind him, George van Rensburg will dive into the pits after an incredible start. It's really tapered off into just another race for George van Rensburg, one that he really wishes he could have back at this moment. Gleeson blinking about here, and that is his call. He will dive in after 24 laps on the soft tyres, and he will now look to go for one more final stop out there. Jordan Gronkowski, your race leader as things stand, and he's got a big margin right now that's only growing to his main championship rival Darren Parker, who is there behind.
So it is a two-stop strategy for Adam Gleeson after all. I was wondering what he could have done if he'd put on the hard tyres later on in the race, but there's also the opportunity that they would be too slow and he'd be too badly affected by that. So it makes his stop and comes out in he's ninth place as we speak. We're being told by Jay that Timothy Vaughan could potentially come out around about P12 in this race, around where Kent Nielsen was, although Nielsen has now come into the pits. I think that sounds about right. Of course, he would be P11 at this point, but yes, Timothy Vaughan has, I think, taken himself out of contention for the podium with some of the events of this race.
Yep, so Timothy Vaughan trying to get aggressive on a three-stop strategy, I don't think has played its part too nicely out there today. So all of that work that's having to be done, he's currently in third. There's the looming threat of Jacob Reed behind, who wants to take that podium place away. And you certainly sense that right now Timothy Vaughan is just waiting for a magic number. And I reckon that number is 16 laps to go. I think that's when he's got to pull the cork and say, I'm going to go for it here at Phillip Island.
Paul O'Regan into the pits now in 8th position. Will drop out of the top 10. There's a bit of a lock up there from Timothy Vaughan, who runs wide, but manages to stop the car from running over the grass. That's the big concern, of course, because if you run over the grass, then you can't really get it back again without slowing the car right the way down. Paul O'Regan here comes out of the pits in 10th position, so does manage to keep it within the top 10 and sets himself up for some points. Jacob Reed here, being held up by Timothy Vaughan, is presumably in net second. Of course, it's hard to tell in the late stages of this race. But in comes Timothy Vaughan, so Reed will gain that place and go onto the podium.
Yep, so Vaughan goes a bit earlier than we were expecting maybe, but he will need those tyres to get himself on that one final stop, and that big stop at that will allow him to go to the end of this race, and he'll be uber aggressive in these final stages, and he knows he has to be. There's Jordan Gronkowski, who's been so good. Connor Pooler here is going to be very close off of the exit, but Pooler will get out ahead of Timothy Vaughan. Vaughan now will look behind and see, well, where else, who am I going to worry about? It's Adam Gleeson who's just behind him, and just like that, Timothy Vaughan, 7th place. That's pretty good. He's still got hopes of a top 5. It's 10 seconds to chase down Walter Lux.
Yeah, I think he'll be about 6th place at the end of this one if it shakes out how it's going. Here is Darren Parker running in 2nd position. You see 17 laps on the softs so far. If he was able to leave it out to the end, it would be 35 laps on softs. I don't think that's quite doable, and it's not. So in he comes for his final stop. The gap for the lead will be about 14.5 seconds between Gronkowski and Reed. And for Parker, the question now will be about how much clean air he has when he rejoins the road. Where will he be in relation to Timothy Vaughan, who you have to say at this point is probably his main rival?
Well, Vaughan is just coming out of MG right now through turn 11 and heading for that final corner, turn 12. Out of the pits then will go one Mr. Darren Parker, and that is a big gap, and he might actually jump Pooler. He has then, so he's out in 5th, and he's got 6 seconds now to Walter Lux. So that's going to be pretty substantial in terms of this race. I reckon Parker here might still be on for 4th, potentially 3rd, depending on Martinez.
Yeah, Parker's played it well there. I'm impressed by how he's made that strategy work, and the real kicker in that one was the start that he made on those hard tyres. He really kept the pace up for quite a long time. He was running well, and I think that set him up. Oh, look at this! All over the back of John Pat Kelly is Jason Green here on those hard tyres. John Pat Kelly may have just made that move, actually. I'm just trying to work out where he's come from in this race. So he's just made the overtake, and it was the aftermath of that we were seeing.
Yep, so there's the move to the inside, and I think this angle's going to take away some of the luster of it here. Green searching for that on the inside, just grabbing a bit of the dirt there. That's managed to draw itself up on the exit there, or the entry, sorry, I should say, to turn 2. So that's where the place has gone. Paul O'Regan, 17 laps on his stint. You'd feel like he's another one of these drivers who's got one more to make. That's Eduardo Radice, who is just in front of him there, but O'Regan currently with the final point scoring position, 10th as things stand.
10th place for Paul O'Regan. You can see him with Eduardo Radice just in front. He's quicker through there than Radice, but takes that alternative line into turn 2, the one that saw Connor Pooler being caught out earlier on. I think that's probably more, it makes a lot more sense for a driver running behind another car, considering if you can poke your nose out of the dirty air of the car in front of you, you'll obviously get more air over your front wing, and therefore a little bit more downforce, a little bit more bite into the turn. But of course you do have to make sure that you're not going to understeer wide, as we saw earlier on as well. But Paul O'Regan managed to get through the corner okay. And you can see that there is so much sand on the outside of that turn there. Little bit risky. Almost looks like oil dust, to be honest. But anyway, and the weather remaining quite consistent too.
Darren Parker, fastest lap, bonus point in the back pocket, 8.5. That's a big point that's going to take away from Jacob Reed, who is one of his contenders in this championship, and crucially will give him an extra one, fighting likes of Jordan Gronkowski. Look at that from Paul O'Regan. back at him down the inside, and Eduardo Radice has seen a ghost.
Nice, and I tell you what, you can tell it was a good move from how long he kept that DRS open. I'm going to watch that back on the stream a second and just see when he actually closed that rear wing flap. You really can leave that open pretty much the whole way through turn 1 if you're brave. He closed it just on the apex of the corner, but even so, very brave stuff from Paul O'Regan. And we're going to get a DRS cam here, courtesy of Jay Kennedy. Great shot, and through he goes into 9th position.
You can leave it as long as you like. The moment that you start touching the brakes, that's when that flap shuts, and as well, if you reach the end of the section. So as you go through, you've got to be very alert for how late you can go. Now, here's Timothy Vaughan. He wants the move on Connor Pooler. He'll go the long way. He's done this so many times today in this race. He'll get it clear before they reach turn-in here along the Gardner Straight into Doohan Corner, and he does what he does best. He's now up into 6th place. There's your highlight in terms of when drivers have all come in and made their stops then in this race. And I think it's very clear to see that it's been pretty similar from the front 4 on what has been the correct strategy to go and roughly even out this race on a 2-stop. Darren Parker's difference is his 2-stop, a lot more aggressive with that hard tyre run on the opening laps.
And Timothy Vaughan, the only driver in the top 7 to have gone for a 3-stop strategy. So the real standouts of that graph are definitely Parker and Vaughan, who thought, well, if you can't beat them, do something completely different, and maybe you can. But yes, Darren Parker, I think, has made it work slightly better. Vaughan, I think, misjudged just how many overtakes he would have to pull. It's why he's been so aggressive. And Parker is up to 4th now, past Walter Lux.
Yeah, that's a big move because Walter Lux went off into the grass in the final corner. A massive mistake that we have to see on replay because that is the move, and this might just be the save of the season so far.
So here we're going to see a replay of exactly what happened. He's approaching the final turn. You'll see the pit lane dart off to the right. Now, what does Walter Lux do as he flies through the corner? Touches the grass, gets wide. Ooh, massive twitch. Whoa, look at that. He twitched back 3 times. And somehow he didn't overcorrect and spear into the barriers.
It could have so easily have gone wrong in a multitude of different ways, but he went full on captain, and he made sure he would wrest control of his ship and do what he needs to. Now Adam Gleason's turn here up the top of Lukey, trying to save it. Watch on the bottom of your screen. This is going to be an indication of the wheel movement he had to make, Walter Lux, to save it. In the grass, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, full opposite lock to save it.
It's when he got into the gravel that it really started to go wrong. But he's clearly heard the phrase "in a spin, left foot in," because it just spun the front of the car back around and kept him pointing in the right direction. Gleason to the outside, goes round the outside of Connor Pooler, just as Pooler has done a couple of times in this race already. And Gleason is in P7 in the late stages of this race. I think he's managed to make his strategy work quite well as well, despite the blinking car and all of that. Not quite as well as Parker. Remember, those two were right together earlier on in the race, but he'll settle for 7th, especially after quali.
Well, he knows how important this race has been, and what about these two drivers fighting for 2 and 1 SimSpeed Championship points? Paul O'Regan and Eduardo Radice here. You got the Italian and, of course, O'Regan there, waiting, trying to find that move. And Radice, who has not had the best of races, now finds himself in this. And now look at this. Here you've got Brad Newman, who's been matching the pace of Gronk, who is exactly 1 lap ahead. And he tries to feign to the inside to get the move done on Jason Green. Green just about shut the door.
He did indeed, and another attempt up the inside. Little bit brave, left it quite late, and Jason Green maintains the position. This isn't necessarily for any sim speed points. It will still affect the iRacing standings, but even so, Jason Green, little wider through the corner. Brad Newman trying to take the advantage of the slightly different line. And it's late in the race like this that you start to see the drivers getting really aggressive with each other because of the frustration setting in, possibly a few more mistakes than you would have seen at the start of the race as well. And we're going to watch it from a front row seat here on board with Kent Nielsen.
Not been a race that Ken Nielsen's really wanted. He would have thought that a top 10 would have been possible here today, but as Newman goes through on Jason Green, Ken Nielsen might decide he wants to follow, thinking about it here at the Southern Loop. Not quite able to find it, so patience will prevail, and we'll have to go and find another way to get through on Jason Green, through Casey Stoner corner, over to Jack Miller corner. This the former Repsol Honda test track down the inside. Little bit of biffo, tyre to tyre. Green is muscled out the way.
Well, sim racing isn't a contact sport, but obviously no one told these guys that. Through goes Kent Nielsen up into 13th position. With 10 laps to go, that will be not too dissimilar from his finishing position in this one. But yeah, I'm just watching that back on stream now. These guys are quite lucky to have got through the corner in one piece there. Sometimes you see these cars tangling tyres and it ends with a much worse result.
It definitely does, and it can so easily go wrong. And Lux, who of course is using one of his 9 lives here today, it seems, with the way that his race has gone. Now inside 10 laps to go as Gronkowski starts with 9 laps to go. Vaughan is looking for 5th place, and Walter Lux is the driver he's looking to make that overtake on the brakes, down the hill, into MG.
Less than half a second between the two of them here. Now, of course, the real gap that matters is that 1 second margin, because if you get within a second, you get DRS, which he is about to activate now. And with how close he is, this should be a relatively straightforward move. Up the inside he goes. Timothy Vaughan back up into the top 5. He will be the top driver to finish on a 3-stop strategy, and makes that move pretty cleanly there on Walter Lux.
Yeah, that's certainly a very well-made move at the moment, but the driver who is flying with everything at the moment as O'Regan just about fends off Radice is Darren Parker. He's a second a lap quicker than Jorge Martinez. He's a second a lap quicker than Jacob Reed. He is half a second quicker than Jordan Gronkowski at the moment, but that won't matter. Parker has his eyes on 3rd, and if he can, he might be able to snipe 2nd position away, but he needs perfection.
Darren Parker, 2.7 seconds behind Martinez, has the fastest lap of the race. Martinez himself still pushing, and Jacob Reed running well. 19.5 seconds, though, the gap between himself and Gronkowski. So at this point, his priorities will not necessarily be about winning this race, but about making sure that Martinez cannot get close enough to get that DRS. I think these guys should probably be okay in the late stages of this race, with a question mark over Parker and Martinez. Parker, I tell you what, his last lap significantly faster than Martinez is. About a second is the advantage that he has. So, side by side further back.
Yep, and that's Radice getting that one back on Paul O'Regan. So beautifully worked there by Eduardo Radice. Patience prevailing as he moves up into P9 with Connor Pooler 3 seconds down the road. So that will be his point of chase inside the final 8 laps. Can he reach Connor Pooler late on here in what has been a truly difficult race in terms of sheer attention span? Here's another look at it on the Gardner Straight, over towards Doohan Corner, driving towards the ocean, round the outside. Thank you muchly.
Gets it pulled up before ending up in the ocean, and gets through into 9th position. Good stuff. There's been a lot of chat in the YouTube and the Discord today about how close the field is, how closely matched everyone is compared to last season. But to be honest, I think everyone is just better anyway. Like the driving ability that we're seeing here today, and the cleanliness of this racing is very, very good. We've only seen a couple of instances of contact, and a lot of them, only one of them that we've seen was a netcode incident. That one that unfortunately took out Anthony Catt. And there have just been a few tiny little instances of contact up and down the field, but no big accidents involving other drivers, and 15 cars still running in this race. I should mention as well, Jorge Martinez here, who we see running in 3rd place.
Yeah.
Remember, he was facing backwards in the early stages. He lost it all by himself on the first lap, so a good recovery drive if he maintains his podium or not.
Well, he's got Darren Parker blinking behind him, and inside of 1 second. This is a very crucial moment here for Darren Parker as they tick over with 6 laps to go. Whether that move can be found, well, at the moment, he's phasing in and out, looking to try and find an opportunity. He won't find it at the moment, but if he sets up this southern loop well and he takes the wide line in, Marquez hugging the inside, Parker's really trying to maximize the exit here, use the slipstream to his advantage, and maybe a bit of the empty recovery system. He's not close enough this time to make the move, so he'll have to wait for turn 1 once again, a little bit later on from now, about half a lap from now.
I think he's going to get it, Darren Parker, with the pace advantage. He's getting closer and closer every time we look at these two drivers. And his lap times tell a story as well. He was about a second faster per lap until he caught up to the back of Marquez. Now it's only, well, it was only half a second on the last lap, but only because you can't go faster when there's a car directly in front of you. It's kind of physically impossible. And he has to actually make that overtake to gain again out of the final turn. How close does he get? He's got the DRS open. And I know from that Jacob Reed move earlier on not to count out drivers making overtakes until they're in that first corner. But this time around, Marquez still has the advantage.
Marquez is so good through the final 2 corners. That dirty air, those turbulences, so difficult. Top of your screen, the race on for 3rd. Bottom of your screen is 8th, 9th and 10th with Paula, Radice and O'Regan, who are still scrapping it out for points out there at this moment in time. So there's still every which chance you've got to try and find those places. But I think Marquez here is proving that he's got a bit of metal to him, and that might have just saved Jacob Reed's race here. I think it's second guaranteed now from here on out for the reigning champion.
Indeed, Jacob Reed has been looking relatively safe there for a little while now, but you had Marquez approaching. Darren Parker, of course, is the main concern with the pace that he's got at this point in time. And if he scores a podium after starting on those hards and after running so long on those hards, I think he's got his own mind to thank for that. Out to the final turn they go again. DRS wide open for Darren Parker. You're right that Marquez is very strong through that sector on the circuit, and this is one of the only real overtaking opportunities for drivers with a pace advantage. So, maybe a little mistake there from Parker as well. He's got to get it hooked up and close enough to Marquez to gain advantage down the straight.
Now, the question here isn't going to be if he makes the move, but where he looks. Oh, he's going to come from a mile back trying to find this pass. Sneaking down the inside at Miller Corner. Has he got enough to Siberia? Little bit of room given, and Marquez lets him go, but he runs wide. Marquez will now fight back, and it will be a drag race here to the hay shed with Marquez on the inside, and no dice there for Darren Parker. It's as close as it can be.
Marquez maintains 3rd. Meanwhile, O'Regan and Radice are fighting over 9th. But what a move there. What a defensive maneuver from Jorge Marquez. And that very nearly, as we're looking at 2 fights now with Eduardo Radice and Paul O'Regan and Connor Pula on the bottom screen.
There he goes!
And that is what happened to Eduardo Radice and why he's now in 10th position. Meanwhile, what I was going to say about that fight for 3rd is that they both did a great job not to lose out massively from that one, with Parker blinking around and Marquez twitching his car out. That could have ended in disaster, but they both had the spatial awareness to make it through the corner in one piece.
And Adam Gleason's got a chance here with 3 laps to go as he looks to try and gain one more. Walter Lux now will also have to play his cards packed close to his chest because he knows that Adam Gleason is there and he is charging in the final stages. Pula as well sees Paul O'Regan, who has had the most amazing longevity on his soft tyres and has been able to close him down and say, you know what? I might have tyres that last forever here. I know how to save them, and I'll use them late.
Indeed, very late. We've only got 2 laps to go in this race now. The timer is ticking down. We're on board with Paul O'Regan, approaching Connor Paula. Remember, Paula was in contention for the podium earlier on, so it shows you just what a pendulum effect racing has, where it comes to you and away from you and swings back and forth. But for Paul O'Regan, he will be loving these last few laps. It's much nicer to be the hunter than the hunted. if you can make the overtake in the end. We've got just over a lap to go.
Yeah, we've got a lap and a half left here in this race, and watch out because Darren Parker is trying to line this one up. He's blinking about, coiled up, ready to attack. Runs it deep, though, through the corner, and he's trying to really gather up the exit. Little slide there, trying to put the power down, and again, Caitlin can't find it.
Yeah, this must be blinking annoying for Darren Parker. As across the line for the white flag, you see Jordan Gronkowski. That, of course, means 1 lap to go. Now, he has a gap of 22.5 seconds. Bring it home, Jordan. You've got this.
He has got an absolutely monumental gap here in this race, one that he has formed through simply unfathomable levels of driving at the moment. 3rd position still on, 6th position still on here in the final laps, and on top of that, 8th position still on the final lap of this race. Here looks Darren Parker, closing and closing. It's defended brilliantly. Round the outside he tries. Inside of the southern loop he goes. Down the inside of Jorge Martinez.
Oh.
Fantastic. Simply fantastic. He got it from a mile back. Gleason follows suit and takes Walter Lux's place. Connor Pooler still defending against Paul O'Regan. Round the outside, the search. Defense is there. Jordan Gronkowski, though, will round the final corner, and he knows how big this is. Back to back, Gronkowski conquers Australia.
And it's a massive win. He's going to win by 23 seconds here over Jacob Reed, who fought well. He has been in the thick of the action, although in the end rather lonely. And 2 of my drivers of the race will come home 3rd and 4th, with Darren Parker and Jorge Martinez. Both really fought for this one. Parker with the alternate strategy, Martinez with the recovery drive, having spun on the very first lap. A spin that was, of course, his own fault, but he didn't let that get to him and comes home in 4th position. But congratulations to the podium finishers, Jordan Gronkowski, Jacob Reed and Darren Parker.
That is a mega drive from Darren Parker to take that 3rd place. Connor Pooler's going to hold this one against Paul O'Regan to the line. The DRS is going to be there. It's going to be close, but not enough. Connor Pooler has held on and has got himself 4 SimSpeed Championship points as these drivers make their way over to the line. Just the 11 on the leading lap. John Pat Kelly will be that final finisher, but a simply put fantastic race of strategy and on intrigue, and everybody who has got what they've wanted out of this one is smiling. Those who don't are going to be turning around and looking at each other going, well, looks like group meeting is at 11, but it's a Scotsman in Australia dominating proceedings here. Twice in 2 years, it has been a dominant display at Phillip Island, and Jordan Gronkowski would be able to say that he is a 2-time winner this season already, and his margin of victory of 22 seconds is going to be a huge wake-up call for the open wheel community, because they know they've got a superstar on their hands, not just when it comes to racing in sim racing, but real world talent as well. Jacob Reed, that 2nd place, he's a pro stripe for a reason. That is a big statement victory. Darren Parker with an almighty podium move on the final lap of the race takes it away from Jorge Martinez, who started turn 4 of this race, pointing backwards after locking his rears. He's done so well to get back to this position. Timothy Vaughan will take a top 5 with a 3-stop strategy ahead of Adam Gleason, who would take the place against Walter Lux also on the final lap of the race. Connor Pooler would hold Paul O'Regan 8th and 9th, as Eduardo Radice would round out the top 10 and the final SimSpeed Championship point. John Pat Kelly would be on the outside looking in, but also the last finisher on the leading lap here, with Kent Nielsen and Brad Newman 11th and 12th, with Jason Green 13th and George Van Rensburg after an incredible start to a very disappointing display for him in 15th. He knows he's better than that. He had a great start to this race. The 2 retirees, Anthony Catt, after his contact out there on circuit, that put him completely derailed, and Ray Lombardi on his own, flipping over the grass bank early on in this race and out of contention here today. But, Caitlin, a racetrack which is often synonymous with being the last race of the season now becomes one of the first. Suzuka is simply put on top of the world as one of the great driving laps you can have.
100%. I totally agree. Suzuka is always near the top of a driver's list when you ask them what their favorite circuit to drive in a Grand Prix car is. And I tell you what, drivers who went well today could well go fast at Suzuka as well. It's a circuit with many similar characteristics, with the fast corners interspersed with tight hairpins. And realistically, I think they'll be driving quite a similar setup at Suzuka as they were today. Of course, the difference being there probably won't be quite such gusty wind conditions, but in terms of the actual circuit layout, you can definitely run a Phillip Island circuit setup there and go fairly well. So definitely look for Jordan Gronkowski, Jacob Reed, Darren Parker, etc. When we come to Suzuka in a couple of weeks' time. But of course, it's still a different race, so who knows what could happen.
April 5th at 7:05 GMT. You're going to want to jump on with us and get into the view here, because the iRacing Grand Prix Tour never stops. It only trundles on to its next world destination. What a display of racing we have seen at Phillip Island. It has proven again why it was used in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series back in the day, why this was a circuit that often needed the best to come out, and why the best drivers continually show that they've got what it takes around this circuit. From Caitlin Penny, from Jay Kennedy, and myself, Jake Sperry, it's been a pleasure bringing you the iRacing Grand Prix Tour here on SimSpeed TV. It is a big statement win, if ever there was one to go. Gronk finds himself on top of the world. It is his season, it feels like, by early form, and nobody has currently got anything to hold him up. We'll see you, though, in a couple of weeks' time when Suzuka takes hold. Round 4 awaits.